hour, so we could do with a little bit more order. And I don't mean to sound destructive, non-creative, or non-spontaneous, but I'd like very much for Alan to finish, and then I'd like to address a question to Mr. Holmes.
Yeah, I did want to finish. I had something very definite to put forth.
I mean, this is going to be a banquet of knowledge. Let's hit it, gentlemen. Nobody has to say, you want to ask Mr. Holmes a question, you know. I mean, just rap, you know. I think so. You guys are deadheads, man. You're representing a tribute to a friend of mine, Mr. Kerouac, and look at you guys sitting up there like that. You never even knew him in your lifetime. You didn't know him in your lifetime, Mr. Layton, did you? All right. So join in and easy. Don't down me when I open my mouth.
Presumably even...
We love you, Gregory.
Aaron Latham is also being...
I don't want a Greek to love me. Beware of Greeks wearing shorts.
Pushti. Go ahead.
Presumably, Aaron Latham is being laundered by eternity in his research into Kerouac also.
I think he'll do good
and being
out.
transformed also into the angelic presence that Kerouac prophesied. But what I wanted to point out was that where did the presumption of angelic presence come from? Where do we presume that we are angelic presences? The key is in the text that Professor Jarvis read at the end, which is a description of an actual phenomenological experience that Kerouac had of an entry into the ground of being, an experience of Satori, an actual experience. He was, I think, the first American novelist that I know of that actually in words attempted to present the profound, sublime, magical experience of Dharmakaya, as it's called in Buddhism, or grace in Christian terms, to explain it in detail, propose it with a physiological explanation of tingling of feet, with metaphysical explanation, a ripple in a great void of knowledge, a ripple of activity which disperses itself again.
Ripple of drinking, man, Alan. Ripple is great. You ever drink Ripple?
So that the question is, for a later generation who have had both natural experience and acid, how recognizable is this experience of the ground of being to everybody? I think almost everybody has had it. Yeah, could you read that again at the end?
The last passage?
That last passage of Kerouac's. Because I think that's like the key to his consciousness and the key to what transformed American consciousness, because he sounded that one note of the very basic modality of consciousness, which is at the base of everybody's knowledge, at the base of everybody's brain.
Well, one proof that it's there is that it's transferable.
Yes.
It's transferable through his work, which is why we're all sitting here.
Yes.
You want to hear part of this? Or?
The very last paragraph of...
And for just a moment, I had reached the point of ecstasy that I always wanted to reach, which was the complete step across chronological time into timeless shadows and wonderment and the bleakness of the mortal realm, and the sensation of death kicking at my heels to move on, with a phantom dogging its own heels, myself hurrying to a plank where all the angels dove off and flew into the holy void of uncreated emptiness, the potent and inconceivable radiancies shining in bright mind essence, innumerable lotus lands falling open in the magic moth swarm of heaven. I could hear an indescribable seething roar, which wasn't in my ear, but everywhere, and had nothing to do with sounds. I realized that I had died and been reborn numberless times, but just didn't remember especially because the transitions from life to death and back to life are so ghostly easy. A magical action for not like falling asleep, waking up again a million times, the utter casualness and deep ignorance of it. I realized it was only because of the stability of the intrinsic mind that these ripples of birth and death took place. The action of wind on a sheet of pure, serene, neural... Essentially, he still remained the little boy that he was on Moody Street, growing up in a French Catholic home. See, I'd like to have you respond to this.
Yes, I don't agree with you, because his strongest consciousness, his strongest face, his strongest writing was precisely what you read, which is something very, like, tough as a tree, profound, very ancient, nothing to do with a wounded boy, having to do with a completely matured bodhisattva prophet. It wasn't a side voyage into Zen. The terminology of that last presentation was paraphrases and eloquences built on Buddhist terminology.
He's the only strong man I know who never hurt anybody.
Of course, you know that in Dr. Sachs, he writes...
The only strong man I know who never hurt anybody. Dr. Sachs is there to read, but you don't hear this. You hear it now.
Right.
He's the only strong man I know in this lifetime, 43 years on my planet here, never hurt no one.
But you know, he writes in Dr. Sachs about statues turning around,
Yes.
and that, of course, is just basically his entire Christian faith.
Yes.
Very strong,
Yeah.
and still
Here, Stan, open your
persisting.
mouth,
Yeah.
man. You ain't said a word yet, Stan.
Not me. I'm here for show.
But
I'm
in Dharma
grabbing.
Bums,
boy,
he
and
talks
the
about
eclipse.
Christ and Buddha
Yes.
together, you
Yes.
recall.
Yeah, I wasn't saying the terminology he used in the great passages of visionary description. The specific visionary description, the visionary incident that he had is described in the Scripture of the Golden Eternity, which I read last night. And this is another paraphrase of same, I think.
Gentlemen, if that guy was so great, did he really hit the shot what life is about and what really goes
Yes.
down?
Yes,
You think
I
he did?
In a few moments, and then preserved very clearly and transmitted it. Transmitted it both by description of the incident and by application of that consciousness to his everyday life.
So he was a checker-outer. He spooks me like this Jesus guy does, you know. I mean, even Jesus had to freak him, but he didn't have to come out a cunt through dick. In other words, he had to be born through, not through the beautiful cock in the cunt. He had to come out a cunt, but the cock had no way in it. It's the
irrelevant.
same spooky thing. That's what screwed Jack up, was the Catholicism.
Yeah, it's screwing you up now.
It's true.
Could I,
You're getting back to...
Let's
you're
get
getting
down
back
to the
the
nitty-gritty.
mundane.
Let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
Getting
Who
back
was
to
that
that
man?
Catholic
Who was
mundane.
that? Who was that?
Who is what?
Who'd that guy?
Which one?
That's
Hey,
it.
hello,
Who that
Yeah.
guy? That guy was Bodhisattva, then I say.
right. You
My
know,
impression of in his coffin was of an extraordinary doll made of meat with no life in it. The intelligence had escaped and become generalized throughout the planet. That he had literally appeared, somewhat as a magical figure, to have perception, transmit that one cosmic perception, and his work done, drank himself out. In other words, I saw finally, I had one...
How long do you think it'll last? I mean, you know, in memory. It's
I
a
had
kick.
one
Well,
glimpse of
get it.
Kerouac for a moment as having deliberately gone through a drunken, dumb show in order to present just one major perception, clarify it, transmit it, sort of Buddha-like, Bodhisattva-like, and then disappear
God.
with great horror as an edifying lecture, or an edifying example of the mortality of the
No
body.
way. He was poor, simple human bones, a poor human being who did his shot. That's
That
all.
passage he read was not poor, simple human bones. That was like elevated, sublime, superhuman bone.
Oh,
Heaven
superhuman,
bone.
I'll take.
yes,
That was heaven bone.
Mr.
Heaven bone I won't take.
Okay, so what's
I'll
wrong?
take a superhuman bone.
And
was
what's wrong
poor
with
human
Charter's
bone.
biography is that it's all human
Heaven
bones and
bone.
no
Where
heaven
heaven? Where? Bowie's Himmel. Bowie's
May I
Himmel.
say, Mr. Ginsburg, what I read, and you had me read again, I consider one of the finest passages, really, in
Yeah.
English language. Catching this very elusive
Yeah.
feeling. It's
Yeah.
a feeling more than anything else.
Well,
It's a sensation.
It's a body sensation which could be lifted and put back into William James's Varieties of Religious
Precisely.
Experience as a
That's right.
classic presentation of a leap of mind into the
Exactly.
great abyss.
Exactly.
could
Same
I-
in Mexico City Blues, more extended as a presentation.
like to ask,
Okay.
I'd like to ask John Holmes a question. John Holmes
focus, you dumbass.
has been portrayed
together.
in several of Kerouac's books
You missed.
in less than flattering terms. I think it's safe to say that. One person has accused you, I guess, of being influenced by Jack Kerouac's manuscript On the Road when you wrote your book, Go. I wish John Holmes would, you allow John Holmes to comment on this. Do you understand the question?
Yeah. Well, just factually, my book was written somewhat before On the Road. I wasn't quite finished with mine when Jack wrote On the Road. That takes care of that. I certainly wouldn't
What's that,
plagiarize
father?
anything from my best
Father?
friend.
Where is he?
In terms of his portrayal of me in the Subterranean, say, we had a falling out that lasted about a year during that period. He always described me as a migraine headache intellectual. But,
So, right.
Hello?
well, my mic
That's
is
why I
working.
insisted on with these mics. You can really hear me.
I'm about 43 years
All
old,
right.
baby.
That's my response to the question.
Fucking man, you know, all the way.
Why did you
question
have a falling out with him? I don't, was it over a manuscript or something? Because,
No, it was over money.
over money.
It really
Good
was.
reason.
Because see,
That's a weirdy.
even in Book of Dreams, he has a thing,
Well, when he was broke,
Oh, that crowd
my
there.
book came out and I
Okay,
made
go
some
on.
money
Oh,
on it.
is it-
And I sent him $50 because I had borrowed $50 from a friend when I needed it badly, and that brought me some good luck. So I sent him $50. Well, a year or so later, Bill Burroughs' book Junkie came out, and he was asked to make a comment on Junkie, as was I, for the book jacket. By this time, he didn't want himself associated with what he called the Beat Generation, and he wrote me an angry letter about the fact that I had mentioned him in an article of mine as having originated the term. That's what happened. He also never sent back the $50.
Can I say something?
yes, Aaron.
Actually, Kerouac had, with anybody that he really cared about, he had fights with all the time. He fell out with Neil Cassidy many times. I mean, he'd go out to California to see Neil,
Dress.
get angry, and rush back to his mother, or rush back to another friend. He'd go out to see Neil, get angry, and rush down to Mexico City to see Burroughs. So the falling out with John Holmes was just a part of a long pattern. Actually, Holmes was one of the people that he wrote to the most, well, at least the longest. I mean, he was still writing to John right up until he died. One of the few people that he really stayed in constant contact with right up until that last moment.
I gotta go to John, excuse me.
Good. Yay. There's some questions.
Yes, all right. Well, Rosie, go ahead.
Well, with both. The agent made available manuscripts and letters and whatnot, and the most valuable of which is the On the Road, the original roll. And I went down to see his mother and his third wife, the last wife, are still living down in St. Petersburg, Florida. The mother's half paralyzed, but still very incredibly strong. She's about 76 years old or something like that, half paralyzed and still yet very strong, and watching the moon shots. You know, before Jack Kerouac died, he and his mother sat there watching the moon shots. And Kerouac, the great traveler, wasn't really all that interested. But his 76-year-old mother, half paralyzed, was really very excited about going to the moon. I mean, she was born at a funeral. Her twin sister died. Now her mother died, her father died when she was young. Now she's survived all of her children, 3 children, and she's living down there in St. Petersburg with Stella Kerouac, now used to be Stella Sampas. So I spent some time down there with her.
Do you think there's room for more biographies of Kerouac? There's
Yeah.
one already. Now you're working on one. I know at least 2 other people that are working on a biography of Jack.
I don't think you ever really exhaust somebody's life. I mean, he had there's more known or knowable about Jack Kerouac's life than just almost anybody you can think of. Because when he wasn't writing manuscripts, he was writing single-space letters. And when he wasn't writing single-space letters, he was writing journals. Plus John Holmes and Allen Ginsberg were writing journals also. You could
Besides talking, of course, he talked a lot.
talking to people, tended to turn on tape recorders when he was talking. I mean, you could tell almost what he ate, what he said, where he went, almost every day of his life if you really cared to. I mean, there's plenty of material.
I think Jack Kerouac, as I experienced him, did not have to use a cliche, a single mean bone in his body. I've seen Jack get very angry, but after his anger, he would always smile as if to reach out to you to say, you know, I'm just kidding, really, that's all I'm doing. He'd reach out to you and try to say to you that he still loves you, you say.
You know how they laid him down in what was the year when they put the Subterraneans in a movie?
About
What year, Al?
About 10 years ago, roughly.
63? All right. They had him in that movie not only being with his black chick, but being with a white chick. And had him pick up a bottle and threaten to break it over a kid's head. That's how they sucked in Hollywood. That's why they died. That's why Hollywood's dead.
Stanley.
All the way. What did Jack say? That if you put down that beatniks are rapists, you'll spit in the wind and it'll blow back at you? What a goodie.
Stanley, can you comment on...
No,
Jack-
Stanley's too frightened. He can't say a word. Stanley's stuck, man. He never got up to face people before.
All right, go ahead.
Stanley, come on, Stan.
I wanted to ask Mr. Holmes a question. I just have this feeling, and my feeling is that you look so straight. And I'm thinking you started writing with only the here. And maybe I'm naive or something, but I'm thinking about life stuff. And I'm wondering what kind of choices you made in your life that you've been reading as opposed to, for instance, Allen Ginsberg and Jerry Forsyth. If you just look different, and maybe books are ridiculous, but I just...
Well, it's never seemed to me that the contents of a man's life is reflected in his shirt front. I'd like to be anonymous, frankly. I don't see any reason to flaunt it. If you got it, you don't have to flaunt it.
Thank you for saying that. 'Cause
I
I
feel
don't
more
flaunt it.
comfortable this way, and clothes to me to be comfortable in, not to be worn as a uniform. That's the only reason.
You redneck.
Yeah, well, there's another aspect of part of the
Square John Holmes
part of
looking creep.
part of John's
Son of a bitch, John Holmes.
part of
Yeah,
John's
A gentleman
charm.
A gentleman from Lowell, Scotty, right?
Well, let me
You want to
finish
raise a
this
question?
second. Let me finish what I was saying.
And finish.
I was just
I'm
talking.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Who are you then, the
Part
director?
of
No
John's
Victor,
charm
no Caesars.
in the circle of, say, 1948 New York City was the fact that while we were running around a little kooky, he did have a stable place to go to, like on Lexington Avenue, an apartment a couple of blocks up, 56th and Lexington was that, was more stably, securely situated than ourselves, and so was like a kind of pillar of strength, not necessarily square strength, but kind of mature New York sophistication, knowledge, awareness, and appreciation from the aspect of somebody a little straighter than ourselves. Presumably, I think he thought of himself as a little straighter than ourselves.
No, the sharpest babies
so,
I
so
met.
the
in my
charm was that we were being crazy, but he was also being seeing a virtue in it from the other side. So in a sense, it was a funny kind of exchange of courtesies in role playing, and an agreement to maintain those roles somewhat, transcend the roles, actually, and like unify the community by transcending the apparent roles in the amity of like a universal tolerance, mellowness, and awareness, which is again what I was trying to point to as the center of Kerouac, rather than the drinking, rather than the lushing, rather than the over-excitation that everybody criticized of chasing the end of the road and finding nothing there. Jack Kerouac found something there at the end of the road, unlike the mythology of the yellow journalistic reviews of his work. He found something very definite there which transformed America, which was a great awareness, great mind, the ground of the universe itself, which is the vision he sought at the very beginning. There was no need then, having attained that, some boding.
Some sucking.
What
You
is
know,
that?
Al, I'm afraid
There was
to
no
interrupt
need for
anymore.
then
You guys are
an
going to down me.
insistence on a ragged costume.
Al, can I just say something, interrupt so it can hold?
done.
So it can hold, because I say it fast. When I came out of prison, when I met you in 1950, you introduced me to Mr. Holmes and Kerouac then. And I said there was a sharp fuckers I met when I came out of prison. I went in 17, came out 20. I was 20 years old when I met you and met these babies.
Why were you in prison?
Oh, I knew you would ask it.
Okay.
He's finally going to talk.
robbed a bank.
Time I'm going to tell him why I'm in prison, I'm glad. Talk.
Did you rob a bank, Gregory? Did you rob a bank? No.
No,
May I
let
say
me tell him
You
why
were
I was-
planning.
He wants to talk.
Talk. I don't want to tell him why I was in prison. Talk.
I can answer
You
your
blew the
question.
best shot.
I can answer your question with an anecdote about Jack Kerouac. You know, talking about straight again, looking at the man in the shirt front. When Jack came to my studio, every time he was loaded, he'd hit my John, and I had a mop handy. He would always miss the bowl. He pissed all over the floor.
Because he's laughing, that's why.
No, let me finish. I went to visit him at his house. We're having a ball, listening to his Handel's Messiah, drinking, our Boilermakers. He finally says, man, I gotta go. He goes to the John. I thought it was a John. Half an hour later, I gotta go to John. I go into the John, and it's spotless. I said, it's impossible, man. I said, what did he do? So half an hour later, he excused himself again. I followed him. You know where he went? He went outside to piss. He would not piss in his own John and destroy his mother's illusion of cleanliness.
Well,
He was hung up on that. You know, I mean, going to John is beautiful.
We have a
You know, I dig shitting and peeing.
question from...
I mean, that guy's not altogether perfect. Nobody is. See, I thought Shelley was the flawless man. And Shelley, an old man, Cedric, in Stowbridge, Massachusetts, 98 years old. Mr. Cedric said, coughing at the table, but Harriet drowned herself with a baby in the belly. And the wife, 28 years old, his wife, he's 98, she 28, just go into the library and be quiet. Don't upset him, he'll die. I go into the library, and there's Shelley at the Bassett color, writing a poem and a painting over his fireplace. So there's a flaw in all of us, man. There's a flaw in Jack. I mean, not taking the John. What the fuck? John's a John.
Gentleman from Lowell wants to ask a question.
Oh, you want to know about prison now, right? How I got in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a goodie.
There's a question?
All right.
All right, go ahead. I'd rather not give the prison shot.
All right, don't.
All right.
Okay.
There was this 3-year-old baby, this 3-year-old girl, and I dug her, and I took her legs apart, and I rammed my dick up it. How do you like that, bananas?
Go ahead, ask your question.
You'll never get to heaven.
Ask your question.
Jay,
All right.
Okay.
All right.
did you invite him?
Yeah.
Hi, Scotty.
Right.
I met Jack Kerouac in 1930.
When I was born.
Now, what you have been talking here is from 1942 on.
Right.
We read the paper, and we know what this makes Jack Kerouac look like. What I want to leave everybody know here, from 1930 until 1942, Mr. Kerouac was not a great man.
Well, obviously, he's
He
a
was
baby.
mostly an ice cream man.
Very good.
But we thought, we read the paper, and everything read from 1940 on. He's just a lousy old drunk.
No, he was lucid all the way.
Okay.
Okay.
He was lucid,
Go ahead.
Scotty.
Okay, good.
He was an ice cream
Could I,
man.
Jay, could I add to that?
Yeah, but he was lucid. All right. Scotty, great. But don't leave, Scotty. Hey, Scotty, let me tell you the truth about prison.
Hello.
The truth about prison. You know how I got into prison?
Hey, Gregory.
In
Hold on a minute,
1946,
will ya?
1946, I'm going to tell you, man, get it, it's a goodie. It's the best. It's the best why Jack loved me. Here it is. Because I was the first rebel. Here you go. When the war was over, World War II, Army Navy stores sold walkie-talkies. Me and 3 other guys got together and broke into household finance in New York City. One guy be in the car with the walkie-talkie saying, no cops are coming. Another guy be on the steps, no cops are coming, while we're breaking the file saves. 21 thou. Put crime on a scientific basis. You got it? That's a sharp shot. 16 years old, but I didn't know what to do with the money. My share was $6,000. So I went to Florida. I bought zoot suits, can you imagine? And I gave big tips to the waitresses. And all the stupid numbers with money. Didn't know what it was, but got it. That's the shot, not the 3-year-old girl. I mean, but the 3-year-old girl is supposedly my brother too, right? The guy does that shot. No way.
Like to ask...
No way, Mr. Scotty. If you knew Kerouac 1930, government doesn't win out. Nobody wins out, babes. You're all fucking dead. You know it. All right.
like to ask a question of Allen
Wins out. Who
Ginsberg.
wins out? Wins out. What do they win? What do they
There's
win?
a question my students are concerned with. The article in Gay Sunshine.
Yes.
And was picked
Oh,
up...
that deplorable article where
It
he
was
talks about
picked
all the
up-
people he fucked?
Yeah.
Ah, terrible.
Picked up picked up in the real paper and also a similar article in this month's Esquire.
A
I would-
re-editing in the real paper is a re-editing of the original text
Right.
in Gay Sunshine.
Right.
You never talk about your sex life, Alan. I don't talk about the women I fuck. How dare you with men who you fuck talk about? You know, there's a matter of, some kind of expediency with yourself.
It's a good thing I didn't talk about you, Gregory.
Well,
Alan, could you-
I'm not a moralist, but I'll get on my friend for that. Truth and finkery are very close. See, I'm an old WAP Italian. You don't think. You tell the truth, though. But it's very close, finkery and truth.
Could you comment, Alan, on why you
Why?
are so explicit in the details concerning Jack's sexuality and whether or not you've taken the family into consideration when you've revealed this?
I wasn't explicit about Jack's sexuality. I was explicit about mine, about Burroughs's, about many people's sexuality, about Neil Cassidy's. Jack was a part of a large number of people I was talking about.
Well, some people you fucked.
centering,
I mean, that's period.
centering
Hey.
on, no, I didn't say I fucked him.
Did he fuck you?
Centering on,
Did he fuck you? Did you ever blow him?
No,
You never blew him?
no, I blew him, yes.
All right.
But that's all in that case.
Al, I would blow you now. I would even suck your asshole, Alan, now.
Let
Everything's
them,
beautiful.
let them.
Everything is great now.
Yeah, but them have. It's got to, So the
Go
question
on,
is.
Alan, go on.
Well, Alan, I mean,
My question is, what is the question?
the point is that
More
you're talking
explicitly.
about your sexuality, but also involves another person who can't...
Many people's.
who-
Many
well,
people's, not just
In this
Jack.
particular case, Jack Kerouac,
Yes.
who can't respond to what you said, and the question
Yes.
is, why is it
So
necessary
should
to be
I-
that explicit about it? Like
Because-
to mention the number of times you slept with him, or what?
Being explicit is being explicit. I was being
I think it's
explicit.
deplorable
I
talking
mean,
about sex.
I haven't heard yet.
It's deplorable.
Except for
If I was
the,
sitting there, I'd get up and walk away.
I
What
haven't.
say about this stuff, man?
I haven't heard yet,
Sex.
except for
What do you mean let him finish? What do I
suggest.
don't want him to finish? What do you tell him to finish? He tells me.
Oh, Gregory, come on. I just want to quiet just a minute, because he said his students were worried about this.
Be quiet.
He said his students were worried about a particular point, so it'd be nice to be able to
They
resolve
hung
it.
on the sex shop, right, with him?
A little.
They're not hung on it. They
Jack was stuck with masturbation.
They want to know, and
Why
I've
I
asked
was so
Mr. Ginsburg the
explicit.
question,
Jerking off.
why it's necessary to be that explicit and talk
Well,
about
why?
sexuality.
It has to be put in another term.
go ahead.
Why is it unnecessary to be explicit? Is what I feel. I mean, it
Well,
seems
could I say
natural
something,
and
Jay?
straight.
Academic
It
about
seems
sex.
natural
Bores me.
and
The
straightforward
priest is here.
to speak
Alan?
naturally and
I'll
straightforward
tell you
about
what
such
it was.
matters.
When Jack
Alan,
was peeing
may I
in the
ask you
bowl,
something?
Yeah.
when Jack
Please.
confessed to the priest.
I'm not
his cock.
getting a
Hey,
chance to
Gregory.
formulate an
Where
answer,
was
nor
it?
you to formulate a question,
And
nor
he's
you to
here.
formulate a
Where is
question.
he? Father
Will you
Spike
hold on a minute,
Mariah.
Gregory?
Gregory,
Hold on a minute, will you?
will you go out and get a drink or something
All
for a
right,
while?
okay.
I'm invited here as you two fuckers.
I got miss you.
That's my way, babe.
Yeah, I know, but you're
dumb
not
freak
allowing
ass,
people...
and you.
Okay.
What?
Alan,
Go on.
Look at
may
the way he
may I
said.
merely say this?
Staring at his dick.
I don't know you
I don't know.
you that well, really, as you know. But I've met you.
One problem is, I think,
Escasere, Busti. Hey, Alan, I'm gonna get the Gregory, I'm gonna get the mafia after you. They're gonna work you over
I
in
am
East
the
Boston.
mafia.
Good.
They're gonna work
Charles,
you over in East
Charles.
Boston.
You know what mafia means?
Can we get
My
to
child,
can we get
my-
to the question, because we could
All
go
right.
on interminably like this.
I was going to
Alan.
tell him what mafia means.
I merely wanted to say
In
this.
Italian.
Professor Jarvis,
here.
go ahead, good,
I
Charles.
wanted to
It's
say
information.
this. Alan, I don't know you, of
It's
course,
my
that
sister.
well, but naturally, I've read practically everything you've written. I teach it in my classes and all of that. And I think you're a sensitive person, for lack of a better word, a very feeling person, I guess really a beautiful person. And you don't want to hurt anybody, but let's say in your comments in the real paper, in this interview,
I'm not responsible for that. I'm responsible for the interview in Gay Sunshine,
right, okay.
which is the authentic and
Which is the one
less
that
corrupted
I
text.
also read that too.
Yeah.
But I think you would also feel that there are many people that love Jack, relatives, friends, and all that. And would you say that if you were talking about yourself, as you say you were,
Yeah, I was
possibly your total responsibility would also be to the survivors of Jack?
Not at all.
You know,
not at all.
not at all, right?
My responsibility is to God. My responsibility is to God.
None at all,
Confession
right?
to God,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, then there's...
And man.
Yeah.
And man. The conversation that I had in Gay Sunshine was not different from conversation I had with Stella Kerouac.
Well, I've talked with Stella, Ellen.
Yeah,
I really have.
yeah.
You think she's happy about this?
No, I don't suppose so, but
You
she
know
will
no
be in about
difference.
5 years.
Don't matter.
You know, well...
She'll be in about 5 years.
Possibly
You have to take that
time.
into account.
We have
Don't worry
no-
about it so much.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
maybe
I mean, don't
some
make it so
people-
heavy.
yeah. Some people do, Alan, you know.
Well, that's part of the
And what
same
if I tell you to
American...
shut up?
It's part of the same
Hey,
American
shut up.
difficulty which drove Jack to drink. Had he been able to be more open about that, he likely would have drank less and suicided himself a little more slowly, I think. You know, that's what I was pointing out in Gay Sunshine was his humanity, which was disapproved of by the community, so to speak.
In many ways that Jack has gone from us, you see. I would be really interested to see what his response would have been.
If you look through Jack's...
I'm going to interrupt.
Look
When you
through
say
Jack's-
gone from us, means like you're here. You gone too, baby.
We're all gone.
Oh, I'm going to walk away.
John Holmes, did you want to comment on this?
Good guy. Hey, you deadheads, you want to comment?
The issue is explicitness, not sexuality. And there's nothing wrong with being explicit about anything. People are only bothered by explicitness when it comes to sexuality. Anyone who loved Jack could not love him less for finding out anything about him.
Right.
He was capable of everything. He wanted everything. He wanted to taste everything. He lost everything too. But that was all part of the same thing.
So the idea, of course, doesn't come that maybe some inaccuracy might have seeped into any of this.
Inaccuracy
to put it
always
gently-
seeps in.
To put it gently, you know. You know what I'm saying, John?
Inaccuracy always seeps in. I mean,
Yeah.
anyone who's been interviewed by the press knows
Of course.
that there's no way out of it.
So there may be some truth left over which hasn't
Oh, I'm
come
sure
to
there's
Which you
more.
will
There's
find in
certainly more
Kerouac.
There's certainly
You
more.
see, Kerouac, as in the
he
tapes
knows
this
than I.
morning, talked about Giroux trying to make him. Remember? If you all through Kerouac's body of work, you'll find probably in the letters an account of going to sleep with Cor Vidal, an account
Yeah,
of
that's-
sleeping with Giroux,
Kerouac was very tight with money.
an account of like not.
Whenever I asked
not
him for
sleeping
money,
with
he'd really
Lucien.
break up. He would never give it him.
Accounts of blowjobs
Fuck
here
it.
and
He
there.
was
They'll
very
all be
tight
there
with money.
Kerouac. Don't worry.
Maybe we're talking about our society today.
Well, what I'm astounded at is that the younger students should be
Yeah,
so
why
fucking
didn't you wanna give me
prissy.
money? Somebody turn me
That's
off.
what I don't understand.
Yeah, it's true. What happened?
Bruce, did you want to ask a question? Go ahead, Bruce.
They turned me. Oh, they didn't. All right. They put me
Bruce is
back.
a student in the course.
Yes.
We people, huh? You better believe it. You see, that whole Beat generation was
Let him
just five
talk,
people.
Gregory.
Gregory,
But he said, you people, that's like, you know.
he hasn't
getting-
finished, and then you can
Finish his
respond.
Sentence even.
Yeah.
Not
But I
one
went
sentence.
fast, I said. you
Ladies
know.
and gentlemen, Bruce Dim.
I'm not continuing.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Fuck you all, man. You see, I tell you it's bullshit all the way.
Well, can you be a little more explicit about what you feel the deluge actually is that has come and died? Then I, because I don't understand you otherwise, literally
Right,
speaking.
what's died, baby? Right, who says it's a movement? Movement is made to die. Don't you know what motion is? Do you know what motion is? Motion
Let
is
him
meant to
define
stop.
himself, Gregory.
I can't even talk. Every time he jumps on me, every time I open my fucking mouth. It's true. You're getting it, folks? Every time I open my mouth, Gregory, don't do this, don't do that. Well, boss, I'm going to break it.
Oh, you're just a big egotist.
Break it.
Go
How
on.
dare you? You've been doing it all day, you peoples, man. Not John and Mr. Eric or this man, but you and that Greek and that other one. All right, movement was created when the Beat generation came on. They called it that. The newspapers, they called it a movement. Meaning, motion's got to stop. You're going to be finished, boys. We're not finished. No way. It's a continuation, change. That's the way she goes. The man, you say, who died, he dead. We're alive. That's the shot.
I think if Jack Kerouac is to live on, as
He
a
don't
literary-
live on, he dead.
Wait, as a literary image, if you try to pinpoint
An image, oh yeah, gotta go like that to an image.
Kerouac's contribution to literature.
I think Christ
Now,
is
the
greater
thing
than
that I read,
Kerouac.
Scassa, hey, shut up, will you, for a minute? Let me finish. I'm going to come over there and punch you in the nose.
Although I think Buddha sucks.
Right. I'm going to punch you right in the nose, Gregory. If you,
Violence, yeah.
If you, I still love you, don't worry. But if you were to worry about whether Jack or any of the writers here on this podium, Alan and John and Gregory and all of that, what I read and what Alan asked me to read again is one of his finest, I think, literary moments. His ability to simply put down on paper, really, what he felt, what went through him, almost to capture the abstraction of life. This is what's going to keep him alive. And all this other stuff about what he was or what he did probably will become meaningless. This is the way I feel about it.
Yeah, but you can't stop there.
I don't think you completely formed your question
Right.
and asked it. Do you have some residue of that left that you want to put out?
Go ahead, no, you said something, I
heard
took a little
I
bit.
was hearing what you were saying, but you never got a chance to actually lay it out.
I for one, did not completely understand your question, and I would appreciate very much if you would word your question again more simply. Don't use that word debtors, because I just get very muddy in my mind and use that
Well,
word, I'm sorry.
Jack used the title, After Me the Deluge, in that last essay.
What presumption?
And I think Bruce wants to know, in a sense, what it means, I guess.
Two-faced Gregory. Two-faced Gregory, that's what he called me.
Just ask
As
the
that's
question
true.
again, I use different words, sir, please.
He wants to
Where-
understand it.
Were you,
I didn't spill nothing. He spilled it.
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
The direction will be the Dharmakaya, the ground of
I
being,
knew we were gonna
the
end up
great
with the Buddhist shit
consciousness,
again. I knew it.
the heaven that
Right.
Kerouac described seeing is adamantine, unalterable, eternal, undisturbed, always there, always available. The movement is always in that direction.
all right, yes. Yeah.
Aaron,
Right.
Aaron Latham, could you comment on who you think of the successors are to that group of people that were influenced by Jack Kerouac in the 50s and 60s?
Well, I was just thinking that as a social movement, or if you see what Kerouac started as something as the hippie movement, or some kind of social movement, I mean, I think that did peak somehow and is sinking down again. But actually, he never really considered himself the father of the hippie movement, or if he thought of himself as that, he was very much the reluctant father. But if you think of it in terms of a literary movement, which is how he thought of it mainly, it's not. I mean, I would say instead of having peaked, it's going up all the time. Jack Kerouac learned a lot from reading Thomas Wolfe, and then the new Tom Wolfe learned a whole lot about writing from reading Kerouac, of literature of Jack Kerouac. I mean, he'd really learned the lessons from Kerouac, and gone on to place himself in the story the way Kerouac did, to write his nonfiction the way Kerouac did. The only thing he didn't do is he didn't change the names. He used people's right names. I think even one of the great detractors of Kerouac is Truman Capote, who said he wasn't a writer but a typewriter. But actually Capote, I mean, would he have gone out to Kansas and mucked around and writing his In Cold Blood if Kerouac hadn't made nonfiction somehow respectable? And if Kerouac hadn't already gone out to Kansas and discovered Kansas for literature, would even Truman Capote have thought of going out there? So I think right now in publishing and in literature, fiction, although fiction will always be with us, but it's somehow kind of staying about on the same level. But nonfiction is really climbing and climbing and climbing. And I think Kerouac is the one who brought us from just straight fiction, thinking that if you're a smart, sophisticated guy, you can only write fiction. Now, after Kerouac, if you're a smart, sophisticated writer, you can write nonfiction. You can write about things the way they really happened. So I think that in that sense, the movement is gaining momentum all the time as a literary movement.
Good, Eric. Eric, you'll do the good bio too.
Question.
Now, well, wait a minute. I'm going to tell Eric, say, Eric, you'll do a good bio because you spoke to me. That Ann Charters did the bio. She didn't even talk to me. And she says, my mother's dead, my father abandoned me. My mother's not dead. I never saw her, she's not dead. And my father never abandoned me. So she sucks. I mean, that's important. I mean, I care about my mom and my father. So it's bullshit. But I think you'll handle it good. Good man. See,
Okay,
earlier
but-
I said, right, you're the only man that didn't know character at this table.
Right.
Now this is a symposium on Jack Kerouac. I wasn't here last night.
I read also with him, you motherfucker. Yeah, you're a smart ass, right? You sit and stand like that when you're talking about what you and Alan read. Straight.
Could you get to the question, please?
This man no entertainment.
What-
Where
the
in
question-
society, babe, when
Go
you
ahead.
see me?
Go ahead with the question.
You're Johnny Carson's every
The
night.
question is,
Dumbass, you're only getting me now. Don't tell me shush.
Yes,
Yeah.
extensively.
Well, fuck, where's you got to handle the stage? It's bullshit that you read modern poetry. I mean, who was a hearing? Oh, bullshit.
Huh?
Dodo shit.
Gregory Corso. Kerouac, Robert Duncan, Creeley, Burroughs as prose poet, Philip Whalen, Philip Lamantia, Gary Snyder,
And the guy in the bagel shop.
Basil Bunting,
After me, the
Louis
guy in the bagel shop,
Zukowski,
too.
Charles Reznikoff, David Jones,
Why not the butcher boy down the street?
and the butcher
You
boy
think
down,
Greg Corso didn't give everybody
down
in the world?
Corso Street. Is that sufficient?
could someone on the panel explain the tremendous influence that Wilhelm Reich had, the constant references to...
Yes, I'll take that fast. All right. When I came out of prison in 1950, I went to the circle in the square. The circle in the square was in Sheridan Square. What's his name? Quintero was running the shop. It's called Dark of the Moon. And I met this girl, Jane Manners, and she was beautiful in that play. She was a Wilhelm Reichian. And that's the first girl I ever laid. Now, here you go. I go with my dick erected in a hot July day up to her pad. She puts me in a Wilhelm Reich incubator. Says, Gregory, sit there and you'll get the organs hitting you and you'll come out with all your sex great. And well, good, I'll sit there. I sat there 20 minutes, my dick went down. I was sweating, I was tired, I didn't want to fuck, and it finished. Nowhere. Nowhere. No way, nowhere.
Is there a
But Wilhelm
priest in the
Reich.
house? Is there a priest here, Gregory?
What?
Is there a
Is there-
priest here?
Is there
I
any...
thought I saw one.
Yeah, I saw him too, he cut out.
Ah,
I'll add a footnote
Is there
to
any
that.
connection with the theory of spontaneous prose and the theories of Wilhelm Reich? Would someone care to go into that? Do you want to, Alan?
Add a footnote.
Could you, please?
1948, Burroughs was interested in Reich. Herbert Huncke, who was on the scene on Broadway and 96th Street, had some friends who were undergoing Reichian therapy. Vicky Arminger and I think two other, Norman Schnoll, who were friends of Kerouac's and mine, and Neil Cassidy, who was in and out of the scene then. Around 46, 7, 8, I don't know. Anyway, very mid-40s. By 48, I went to a Reichian analyst also directly for the actual therapy. The general idea, Reich was preaching sexual revolution, or the Reichians were preaching sexual revolution by attention to full, complete, uninhibited, unchecked orgasm, pointing out that the restriction on orgasm is restriction on all consciousness. That was a striking idea which everybody understood. The orgasm of prose consciousness, a restricted prose consciousness orgasm was also like a restricted consciousness too. So Jack, I think, transferred the idea directly to the idea of writing. There was also the fact that the Reichians were getting all sorts of funny physiological vibratory sensations, tinglings, actually kundalini tinglings, if you would like to
Terrible,
use,
Alan, terrible.
to use
They were terrible.
to use ancient rhetoric. And those tinglings were also apprehended in high states like Neil driving or smoking grass.
Al, can I
or
interrupt
listening to
fast?
jazz and dancing.
Al, can I interrupt fast?
So it was the only psychoanalytic, it was the only
I'm gonna give him a
psychoanalytic.
fast
So
one.
let him
Yes.
finish. Let him
Fast, okay. No, he'll finish fast. That chick Jane, when I did fuck her, you know what happened? She came, she slapped me on the ass, said that's enough, and I didn't even come yet. That's where the Reichians screwed up.
Well, that was one of the patients.
They used to massage. See, they gave analysis. If a woman was
hadn't gone long
armored,
enough to
if a
analyze.
woman was armored with smile and she didn't smile enough, they'd massage your mouth and then analyze you. So if you didn't have orgasm, they massage your cunt and analyze you. In other words, that's their shot. You see, was like acupuncture, right? All right. So when I laid it on to her, she had her orgasm finally through this corso, and patted me on the ass. That's enough. And I didn't even come. Right. Right. No, right.
So, now Kerouac has a phrase about a drummer drumming with his eyes lifted to heaven in easy Reiki-analyzed ecstasy. Quote, easy Reiki-analyzed ecstasy. Just simply a paraphrase of the conception that with total freedom, there would be a complete relaxation and a complete giving out of what was inside body or soul. Also identity of body and soul, that mental anxiety was accompanied by physiological tension and armoring. Was a very simple idea that hadn't been taken into account by intellectuals before. The body and soul are one. So it fitted in with the breakthrough. It was a break, like the phrase also, finally. The Reichian phrase was breakthrough. In the 40s, that was the one area where that phrase was used most. I had a breakthrough with my analyst last week. That phrase, breakthrough, was taken for like the breakthrough of cosmic consciousness described there. Breakthrough as a general term for Neil had a breakthrough, a new understanding of the road, or of driving the other day.
It's like Satori.
Yeah, a breakthrough to a new ground of understanding.
John Colin Holmes, do you write that way, or do you write with Reichian? If so, why, or if not, why not?
I don't. Doesn't work for me.
Doesn't work for you. Would-
Make of that what you will.
I don't know how you can with it.
Jay,
Yeah, Aaron, go ahead.
There were also some fairly traditional sources for Kerouac's idea of spontaneous prose. One of them was William Carlos Williams, who had worked a good bit with Allen. William Carlos Williams warned against too much rewriting, and the spontaneous phrase may be the best phrase.
William Carlos Williams blew it this way. He said, when are we going to talk American? Didn't he know that the children of the immigrants would speak American?
what's that?
Oh, go ahead, Aaron.
Also,
That's a rhetorical question.
another very
It's
traditional...
not rhetorical, it's a fact today.
Another very traditional source of Kerouac's idea of spontaneous prose was just Catholicism. I mean, he saw, to a certain extent, his writings were confessionals. And later on, he began to believe and even say that the Holy Spirit or the Holy Ghost was speaking through him. And then if God speaks, you don't rewrite God. So there were some very traditional roots to this idea of spontaneous writing. But actually, he didn't really discover spontaneous writing until late 1951. By which time he'd already written The Town and the City and part of Visions of Cody.
Could you talk, John Holmes, on how he came to that theory? Do you know it? Was it a letter from Neil Cassidy that got him going?
That was certainly a factor. I mean, Neil wrote him a long letter, 15 single-spaced pages. Which, this letter from Neil, long 15-page, single-spaced pages. And Jack was in a sort of funk about his writing not going well. He was trying to write On the Road, and it wasn't going. Neil had just blown, more or less as a jazz musician would blow, chorus after chorus about it. And this impressed Jack, and he was desperate enough to try it, and it worked for him. He'd always leaned in that direction anyway.
I see. All right, Charles, go ahead.
Jay, I was going to say, I think there's another aspect of Jack Kerouac. Now, it's almost ironic. He's a kind of enigma. He's a puzzle. Because Jack wrote these novels, and he helped to initiate this movement, call it what you will. People like Neil Cassidy, and of course, Allen and Gregory.
No way did he get up and read with Alan and I when we turned it on in 1958, really reading in this country. Jack never got up with us to read.
All right.
There you get another truth. I'm not going to break, I'm not an
You're getting a
iconoclast that way.
feedback.
I love my friends.
Of course you do. So do
All
I.
right, but the truth is he never got up to read with us.
You never
We're
what?
the poets that went out to lay down in America.
Yeah, turn it down.
Somebody tend
Steve
to
Salvora?
What I wanted to say...
He and I and Peter went up on the stage for America in those days when Eisenhower was president. We got up there.
Okay, you're anticipating my remark then, right? That's what you're doing. I merely wanted to say that
Con man,
deep down inside, Jack Kerouac in many ways remained essentially a conservative. He was almost just an observer. Despite, these novels, Jack probably essentially never changed his early Lowell political philosophy, which was, Roosevelt, the Depression, and all of this. I think really he was an observer more than anything else. Alan, what do you think of that?
He took various roles different times.
Yeah.
There was a period when he was shipping out that he was a communist. Or
Right.
said he was.
Right.
Then there was a later period when, during the McCarthy era when he was very much in favor of Joe McCarthy.
Right.
And there's an unpublished manuscript being his notes and transcripts of the Senate hearings on McCarthy, which are really explosive and funny.
I'm sure
You
they
see,
are.
seeing McCarthy as like a live, the only live American Neil Cassidy-esque person in the Senate committee room.
So this is valid, you'd say. This is a valid premise.
Then there was a Kerouac who would sit with his mother, with me in the room, with somebody, Senator Javits, talking about, say, reparations for the concentration camps, with his mother saying, "Well, they're never going to forget about that. They're still complaining about it. Still,
Right.
They should have finished the job." Then there was Kerouac who got up on the Buckley Show and said, the Vietnam War is just a bunch of South Vietnamese trying to get our Jeeps.
Jeeps, that's right.
Yeah.
Sure. There's a preface in the book, in the collection, Lonesome Traveler. And, there's a lot of things about himself in the preface, introductory comment. And then he says, religion, he says, I've never been Bede or Bodhisattva or whatever. I'm just a mystic Catholic person, something like
Yes.
that. You remember that? I say,
Yeah.
That's
Of course, that was
pretty
camping too,
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, he was. I think one reason he was so scared and paranoid and drunken at the end is he realized the awful crash coming through in America, as Gregory
Yeah.
outlined in his poem the other night.
Sure.
And realized it was death here, and it was scary to be out front, and that's why he was always talking about the FBI and I know
Right.
the FBI and
Right.
So that there was a certain element of cowardice there, of like getting out from in front, getting out from where the eggs were being thrown or the rocks.
Sure, he was afraid.
You know that line in the
Afraid.
poem? I'll give it to you what Alan mentioned. If a man have everything in his home and nothing outside, and maketh home a place to hang yourself.
I think one of the things that, if you're interested, Jack smoked a fantastic amount of much. And in my observation of smoking 13 years, along a lot of those years with Jack Kerouac,
Smoke again.
was that in smoking, you cover your air sacs, your thousands of air sacs inside your lungs with nicotine tar, so that you do not get your daily supply of oxygen, which means that, which in my opinion, I've noticed that the sexual climax that we all have, or that whoever has an orgasm, the sexual climax is in direct relationship to the amount of oxygen that you can take in your air lungs. And if you cut your supply of oxygen, you are also, if you cut your supply of oxygen by smoking, you're also cutting the length of your climax, your sexual orgasm climax, which means that you are cutting your joy, which means that you're going to drink more, so that tobacco and drinking go along, so that Jack held a cigarette in his hand more than he held a pen in his hand. And if you want to learn something from Jack, you should stop drinking and never drink a drop of wine or liquor again, or beer, and completely stop smoking. Because if you don't, you are really not going to understand Jack, and anything that you read from now on,
You're still going to
really
die.
will not understand it at all.
You're still going to go.
Stanley,
I mean, don't
Get-
walk across the street, cars will hit you.
get to a microphone. Did Jack paint in a manner that was similar to the way he wrote? Could you just talk
I don't
about
think you ought
that?
to pass over.
You never asked me a question yet. That's why I interrupt. Dumbass, you invited me here. You paid me $500 for today. You didn't even ask me a question. What do you think I'm interrupting for? The man who hasn't spoken,
Okay,
you ask
Gregory,
him something.
this is your question. If you had a choice
You
between...
better give it good.
If you had a choice between a glass of wine and a rose, which would you take and how would you relate that to Jack Kerouac?
Here you go. I'll give the great answer on that. And it's an old Italian expression, but I don't know it in Italian. But I know it in English. If you have a choice between two things and you can't decide, take both. That knocks out Fred Hoyle, who believes that if there's a steady state or a big bang with the universe, right? Take them both, mister.
We'll take a question from the audience now.
You started talking to Stanley. You asked Stanley.
Hey, don't forget Stanley. I
You were
already
gonna
love
ask him
it.
something.
Oh, yeah, all right. Did you want to answer that? Go. Well, all right. I'll take questions. I'll start with you. Good.
Ginsey. Ginsey. That's great. That's amazing.
Yeah. You weren't listening. I said one of the reasons, possibly, that he drank himself to death was that he wasn't able to make it consciously on a homosexual level, too. You got various levels mixed up. That's why it's not sitting correctly, because you didn't get it in the context. Because you were drinking, probably.
Remember, one weird thing today is that a dead man can't talk here. You know, in America, you know, you're innocent or proven guilty and all that. And we're talking about a person who can't now talk about himself. Be careful.
Yeah. Yeah. But you didn't understand it, did you? You will when you die.
Before he dies. Death is not going to make him smart. Smart before he dies.
Perhaps before you die, but you will understand it someday. Someday you're going to understand it. Someday it'll appear like a glorious moment. Go on.
Spit out. Spit out.
He had a high supernatural vision. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to answer your question. He had a high natural, supernatural vision of the end of life, of everybody's death. He saw everybody as a phantom walking around in a dream material palace. He saw the whole world as a giant dream, like a lightning flash, like a bubble, like a rose. He saw everybody gesturing like ghosts, not realizing that they were ghosts that were going to disappear in the sunlight. And from that, look, you want to?
No way, I don't want to do it. That's it, that's beautiful. Disappear in the sunlight. The lamp is shattered, the light and the dust lies dead. How do you like that? Don't avoid being you. We can't help it. Another question. Pass. Another question. Fuck it. Change order. You know who wrote "When the lamp is shattered, the light and the dust lies dead"? Does anybody know who wrote that? When the lamp is shattered, the light and the dust lies dead. When the cloud is scattered, the rainbow's glory is shed. When the lute is broken, sweet tones are remembered not. When the lip is broken, loved accents are soon forgot.
That's beautiful.
Of course it is. That's Monsieur Shelley. He's a tough fucker, that Shelley. He went on a rowboat to free Ireland in those days. On a rowboat. I mean, he went on a rowboat with pamphlets out to free the poor Irish from England.
Hey, Mr.
Beautiful
Corso.
Shelley.
Gregory,
Yeah, Mr. Corso, I'll take.
Gregory, Sam, no, you know Bruce Cook. He wrote this book.
Yeah, it
Beach.
sucked all the way, nowhere.
Well, you know him, right?
No way. I knew him one day. He said he worked for the National Observer in New York City, a newspaper. Came into the house. I lived in a duplex with my bell carpenter, Miss DuPont. We had the most magnificent house. He said I was sleeping in a sleeping bag on a floor where we had the most magnificent beds and everything to make me like, beatnik type. In those days, I was pretty happy and nice with my Belle. Belle means beauty, doesn't it?
Bill.
All right. Hope was my first girlfriend that I mentioned earlier today. So I had Hope and I had Belle. Names
Did,
are really sharp. Names are nice.
Question from the audience here? Right here, go ahead.
Love me, huh? You never asked me about love. You never asked me. Son of a bitch.
No.
No agent,
Not
no
for
way.
writing, for lectures, yes, not for writing.
I have no agent for nothing. I have a vision agent.
Sterling Lord, he said.
Sterling Lord.